I'm going to finish telling you a story. It's going to involve a missing old woman, and the fact that sometimes old women see dead people. Oh, and maybe a hint of the Tower of the Dead. Welcome to the Aurora Wasteland. Connections in the Aurora Wasteland aren't pleasant. You never get what you want. You always get what it wants. It takes and it takes and it takes. It never gives. Its connections run one way and one way only, into the wasteland, into the darkness. As Dolores stared at her tea, her computer chimed in the distance. She always kept the sound turned up loud so that she could hear when an electronic mail came in. She rushed over to see it was from Molly. Obviously, she was having trouble sleeping too. After watching several episodes of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, Dolores went to bed, but she laid there tossing and turning. Eventually, she'd gotten up and stared into the night sky while sipping her tea. Everything from the last couple days just kept cycling over and over in her mind. It was a comfort to see the same thing was happening with Molly. Dolores opened the email. The message from Molly was nice. Maybe she had been too hard on her earlier. Yes, she probably had. She'd have to rectify that when she saw Molly next. But what really caught her attention were the pictures of the lake. The tower stared back at her from them. It swayed and reached for her. The image seemed like it was alive. She stared at them, unable to look away. Tears welled up in her eyes. She could see her husband in the tower, pain on his face, reaching for her to help. In a snap and with no preparation, Dolores, still in her housecoat, ran as quickly as she could out to her car that she infrequently drove. She frantically drove out to the lake. In nothing but slippers, she stomped her way out to the point in the lake where she had seen the bodies. They were still there, still reaching for her. The sounds of the bodies moving echoed through the silence of the night. Without Molly there to stop her, Dolores stepped out to the cold lake water. Quickly, it was high enough that she had to swim. Slowly, she made her way over to the Tower of Bodies. Exhausted but determined, she reached the Tower of Carnage, though the face of her husband seemed to be gone. Cautiously, she approached it. The water became shallower as she did. Eventually, it reached the point where she could stand up again. She circled the tower. The hands and the faces of those in it followed her around. But nowhere did she see her husband. He seemed to be gone. As she turned to leave, she noticed just how rocky and uneven the ground was. Only after slipping and having to reach for a rock to get herself back up did she notice just what the rocks were. The Tower of Bodies continued underwater. Panic rushed through her as she realized what she was standing on. She tumbled over and tried to get to her feet, only she couldn't. Something was grabbing her, holding her down. It was hands from the tower. She screamed and struggled, but there were more of them, and she tried to fight back. As she watched, the water rushed over her face. A man who resembled her husband stood over her waving. A menacing smile spread across his face. Panicked and unsure what to do, Molly called the police. Within minutes, they were at Dolores' house, and they quickly came to the same conclusion Molly did. Dolores was missing. Molly told them about the lake and that Dolores may be seeing things. Minutes later, police cars were racing to the lake. They asked Molly to stay in case she returned, to which Molly ignored them and raced off to the lake behind them. On the way, she remembered the conversation the two women had shared. They'd seemed so different when they'd first met, but quickly discovered, as most humans do, that they had more in common than they realized. Gardening, TV, game shows, being alone, being women. Given enough time, they could have become friends, but now she was worried that their time had run short, and what they had been given would end up being it. A short connection. The drive to the lake seemed infinitely longer than the previous. Every turn seemed to take an eternity. By the time Molly reached the lake, she wished she had been the one missing. The anticipation was agony. The flashing lights of the police cruisers welcomed her to the lake. Their ominous glow flooded the area. Molly was barely out of her car by the time she was stopped by the police. They told her that this was an active crime scene and that they'd found something. Over and over she asked what they'd found, but their reply was always they couldn't give out information regarding an active case. As the officer tried to coax Molly back into her car, she sprinted past him. She couldn't let Dolores down. She couldn't let the Aurora Wasteland down. She ran down the path Dolores had taken her only a day earlier, passing confused police officers as she did. When she finally reached the point of the path where Dolores had witnessed the tower, Molly froze. There in the mud was Dolores' slipper. Molly stared at it as the officers caught up to her. Panting, she quickly pulled out her phone and snapped some pictures. Then she was escorted back to her vehicle, where she proceeded to cry her eyes out. Both tears of sadness and happiness poured out. On the one hand, Dolores was likely dead, killed by whatever the tower was, but on the other, she was hopefully back with her husband again. Except the longer she thought about it, the more she questioned whether Dolores would end up back with her husband. Dolores had mentioned in passing that she attended church. Most religions consider suicide a sin, assuming Dolores was dead, and assuming the tower had killed her. What if Dolores had come out here knowing she would likely die? Was that still considered suicide? Suicide by cop wasn't it? What about suicide by the unknown? Suicide by an unknown Aurora Wasteland creature. Molly hoped Dolores and her husband were back together, wherever they were. After a few deep breaths, Molly opened her phone to update the Aurora Wasteland with the latest news about Dolores, which she did. But as she pulled up the pictures she'd taken of the lake, she froze and stared at them. In the distance, out in the water, past the slipper, was a tower of bodies. The water was dark red, exactly as Dolores had described it. Molly flicked through the pictures she'd taken. They all showed the slipper, the tower of bodies, and something else. Something out of focus, but something Molly was certain of. It was Dolores, walking across the surface of the water, reaching out for Molly. Even as Molly stared at the picture, it seemed as if it was moving, reaching for her. Molly posted the pictures and deleted them from her phone. The police never found Dolores or her body, only the slipper. Molly closed her first Aurora Wasteland case. It would be far from her last. The paths around the section of the lake that contained the Tower of Bodies were closed to the public. Rumor has it one of the higher-up police officers saw the tower too. To this day, Molly hasn't returned to the lake, nor looked at the pictures, though she does see Dolores semi-regularly in her dreams of the Tower of Bodies and the lake. Hey, my name is Vaughn Ashby, and I'm a horror author. Thanks for checking out my video, and if you liked it, why not pick up one of my free books? Head on over to vaughnashby.com/free and get a few of my novels. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at aurorawasteland.com, because it's real.